Hi guys, welcome to the recap edition of the podcast I have called Sports and Shorts and Sorts. Break down all kinds of NBA stuff because got way too much to fit on my regular podcast, so it's strictly NBA, strictly hoops, y'all. So let's jump right into it, and let's do it. Excuse me. Usually I start jumping right into divisions and whatnot, but gonna do something a little different this time because we had the whole in-season tournament. What do you think? What are your thoughts? I thought it was pretty successful debut. I mean, couldn't got my picks any more wrong, but I still enjoyed it. I mean, before the season started, I thought, hey, Orlando Magic would win this thing, but they were a victim of the point differential, so they didn't even make it to the bracket and the knockout stages. So once I saw the bracket, I'm like, Bucks and Pelicans, boom, in the final, Pelicans winning it. Ugh, little off. So in the semifinals, you had a 4 p.m. local start here for it's wild start for a semifinals game in Vegas. You had the Pacers and the Bucks, and Pacers had beaten the Celtics to get to the semis, and the Bucks had beaten the Knicks. And like I said, this was a hell of a game. The Bucks would be up, Pacers storm back. In the third quarter, Dame Dolla did his thing, hitting everything. But in the fourth, they went away from him. The Pacers stormed back. Tyrese Halliburton, who just been the darling of the NBA throughout this tournament, was driving. He was hitting outside shots. He had a big shot over Brooke Lopez and did the old Dame Dollar point at the watch thing, which, Dame didn't appreciate probably, but huge three. His parents were in the crowd loving it. It was big. Pacers go to the finals. The other semifinals was not as exciting. There was a huge gap in between, so there was a massive wait in between games, and then you had the Pelicans and the Lakers. The Lakers had beaten the Suns in the semis, or the quarters, while the Pelicans beat the Kings, and everyone was hyping up this LeBron James Zion Williamson matchup. And I think someone forgot to tell Zion he'd finished with 13 points. And on the other side of the court, you had LeBron outrunning this guy up and down the floor in his 21st season. But yeah, LeBron would go for 30 points in 23 minutes. Outrageous. Something he hadn't done in his legendary career. Lakers had six guys in double figures, and yeah, they trounced the Pelicans to go to the finals, which would go down on the Saturday, only game of the night. Exciting final, right? You had this veteran team with title aspirations taking up the young and up and comers, who I said would be this year's Kings at the beginning of the year, but I digress. But everyone was talking Halliburton and the LeBron, but forgot to talk about the brow. Anthony Davis, 41 points, 20 boards, 5 dimes, 4 blocks. LeBron called it a Shaq-like game, and he's not really that wrong when you look at those numbers. Like, that's a dominant performance. So the Lakers beat Indiana, taking the first ever NBA Cup. LeBron James took home the first ever in-season tournament MVP, something Michael Jordan hasn't had. No, I'm kidding. I won't go down that. But all tournament team announced as well. LeBron was on it. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, and of course Tyrese Halliburton. But yeah, like I said, I love this tournament. Some people still iffy on it, and I understand, but yeah, it's something new. It's indifferent. We gotta embrace this bad boy. We've been talking about meaningful games early in the season. That's what we want. There should be some tinkering, I imagine, going into the next one. I know a lot of players weren't the biggest fans of the point differential. They thought it was disrespectful that people, racking up the score late at games, but that's just how that one went. But there's talk that they might want to make it where the winner of the tournament gets a playoff spot. That could be interesting. But more often than not, you're going to have a playoff team winning this tournament. So to have one where a non-playoff team wins this tournament, that would really make it for a spicy end of the season. But anyway, we've talked enough IST, which is a weird acronym. Maybe we won't call it that. But let's go to the Atlantic Division. Best team in the East still, Boston Celtics. They went 2-0 this past week. You could see they were pissed off after getting knocked out of that in-season tournament by the Pacers, but they'd bounce back. Healthy Kristaps Porzingis came back, helped them crush the Knicks. Then they went down early against the Cavs before coming back in that one again. Porzingis was behind that one. He, Tatum, and Brown all finishing over 20 in that comeback. This team's the real deal. Getting KP back, it's only going to make him that much better. Still a title contender. Jason Tatum still needs to be talked about with those MVPs. He's in the race there. Next up in that division, the Philadelphia 76ers. They went 3-0 this past week. I mean, Two of them were against one against the Wizards, one against the Pistons. So it's nothing really too wild. The other matchup they had was against the Hawks, and the Hawks had all five scores going double figures. Trae Young didn't play. But the only problem was Maxey and Embiid on the other side. Embiid 38 and 14, while Maxey had 30 of his own. Sixers took that game, and like I mentioned, they crushed the Wizards and the Pistons. So this no, this duo of Embiid and Maxey is just awesome. He seems like a much better number two role than James Harden was there. Kelly Oubre's been back on the court. It's good to see him back from injury. So yeah, they should be taking care of business this upcoming week. But look out for the 20th. They match up with the Timberwolves. That could be a good matchup. We should see what happens there. From Philly to the Big Apple. Knicks went 1-2 this week. They lose to the Celtics before beating the Raptors and then going on the road and losing to Utah. Julius Randle has elevated his game. At the beginning of the season, I was saying, wow, what is wrong with this guy's struggles right now? But he's really stepped it up and looking like the guy we expect him to be. Our Canadian guy, RJ Barrett, what's going on here? You know, he put up a season high 27 against the Raptors, but followed that up with 9 against the Jazz. Like, he needs to step up his consistency here. He's not a rookie anymore. He needs to play a lot better. But a huge blow to the center, the Knicks. Mitchell Robinson, I've been talking him up on the show for his offensive rebounding, how great he is with the team. He injured his ankle against the Celtics, which is requiring surgery, and he'll be reevaluated in another 8 to 10 weeks. Just brutal. Jericho Sims will be filling in at center, but I imagine Hartenstein will be getting most of the minutes coming off the bench. But they got some tough games coming up this week. They could be going 0-4 by the time next episode hits. And sticking with New York, let's talk Brooklyn. Nets went 2-1 this past week, and they've been looking really good. They beat the Wizards. They lost in Sacramento, but then they ruined the Big Three's first game together, going in the Phoenix and beating them. The Nets have been doing it with a team game, you know, in their win over the Suns, all starters scored a minimum 14. This is a team you don't want to face now. They're really believing in each other. A young, capable team with confidence is scary. 7 players averaging double figures, and they will come at you in so many different ways. You cover Bridges, Thomas is going to hit it. Then you got Cam Johnson. You got Lonnie Walker coming up and dunking. It's so many people from so many different ways. A scary team. Finishing up in the Atlantic in the basement, we go to the most north team, the Toronto Raptors. They went 1-2 this past week, losing a tight one on the road to Charlotte, but they'd follow that up, losing another close one at Madison Square Garden before winning a thrilling one over the Hawks. The Raptors were, you know, at least they were exciting this week, putting up big numbers in all the games, and at least against the Hawks, they showed they could close a game. Pascal Siakam looked like the closer we come to expect. You know, he's hasn't been closing like that a lot lately, and him combined with Scotty Barnes is the real deal. This team can be good, I feel. It's just they can't finish the games off. I don't know. This is a new coach still. You know, a lot of changes have happened, but if they play more like they did against the Hawks, you know, this could be a good team. I don't want to say that great of a team. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm holding back a bit on them, but we'll see what they can do here. Going to the Central, we'll talk the Milwaukee Bucks. They went 2-1 this past week. Only loss was that semifinals matchup against the Pacers. They'd go in the overtime to beat Chicago at home, and then they'd host the Pacers in the rematch of those semifinals. And this was a little chippy, to say the least. You had Giannis giving Tyrese a little shove after a bucket. Aaron Neesmith was guarding Giannis, and Giannis pump faked him, got him up, and went up. And, you know, you go to foul him. It was a pretty hard foul. He tried to, you know, cradle him so he wouldn't get hurt or anything. Bobby Portis didn't like this and got up all in his grill. Bobby Portis is always going to have your back. So, yeah, he got all up in there, defended him, got teed. He'd get another tee later on and get ejected. But Antetokounmpo looked motivated in this one, going for a career-high 64 points. Yeah, 64, like the Nintendo. Like, he went all out. Then a weird, strange scene after the game. Like, you could see an assistant coach for the Cavaliers take the ball and kind of scurry off. And Giannis wanted that ball. He's like, it's my career high. Give me that ball. They're like, no, we're not giving you the ball. Rookie Oscar Tshiebwe picked up his first NBA point this game on a free throw. So they're like, we're giving him the ball, which seems very weird. I saw, you know, in the box score in the Indiana final game in the in-season tournament, Tshiebwe scored a free throw there, I guess, that doesn't count towards NBA stats, so I could see why it wasn't his first point, but that's super weird. And the press conference after, Rick Carlisle was saying someone, general manager, took an elbow and he might have bruised ribs, but it was a weird scene, a fracas as they called it. But hey, the Bucks they're a contender. I had them winning the title preseason, and they still look like they can do that. They're still coming together here, and a big thing, their defense needs to come up. But another thing, like, emotions seem high. Granted, there was a bit after that in-season tournament loss, but the Bucks were riled up after not getting that game ball. And this stems back to that in-season tournament when they lost to the Pacers and Bobby Portis confronted Coach Adrian Griffin in the locker room. And, this team just seems like they need to chill a bit here before their emotions get the best of them, because that could end up costing them in the playoffs. But yeah, next up in the division, let's keep it with the same we were talking about here. We talk Bucks, let's talk Pacers. Like I said, they became the darlings of the in-season tournament. They went 2-2 this past week, winning semifinals against the Bucks before dropping to the Lakers. They'd follow that up by beating the Pistons and then losing that intense game to the Bucks with a fracas followed. But I still like this Pacers team. I said beginning of the season they'd be this year's Kings. They'd step it up. Halliburton's the stud right now. You have 8 guys averaging double figures. But like the Lakers showed in the finals, if you trap and take out Halliburton, who's going to step up? I feel like Miles Turner should be that guy, and he's capable of it. And maybe needs to be a little more consistent at crunch time, but this is still a really good team. We'll go to Cleveland next. The Cavs went 1-2 this week. They were tough games too. Went into Miami, beat the Heat, but then they lose to the Magic before losing to the Celtics. And they were up big on the Celtics in that early before the Celtics came back and took it. But one thing from this team, you're going to get sick backcourt play. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Whew, something else to watch. One will go at you, the next will go at you, the one setting up the other. It's some really good ball. And their front court, I feel like Evan Mobley, like, he's had a pretty good year, but I feel like he needs to do more. Maybe he's just outshined and not getting as many touches because, that backcourt's so sick. But I was expecting a little more out of Evan Mobley this year, so we'll see what happens. They got some tough games coming up this week as well, and we'll see what happens. At least the team's getting healthy. We'll go from Cleveland to Chicago. They went 1-2 this week. They beat my Spurs in San Antonio. And then after a few days off, they go to Milwaukee and lose that overtime game I alluded to earlier. Then they lose to the Nuggets on their own floor. Even after Jokic was ejected in that one, they lost. But yeah, the Bulls have been doing this last bit here without Zach LaVine. And without him, Colby White, he stepped up. This is how I expected him to come out of the University of North Carolina. I was like, he's the underdog pick to win a Rookie of the Year before I had a podcast or anything, and I was so wrong. But the last 3 games, he scored 24, 33, 27, playing some of the best basketball of his career this year. And maybe the longer LaVine doesn't play with this lineup, and if they can play the way they are, get some more wins, maybe they'll try to ship off LaVine. I don't know. He's still out with injury, but they do have a tough week coming up. I've said that there's a lot. I'm just saying there's a lot of good games coming up next week, so pay attention to them. But yeah, finishing up the Central, we'll go to Detroit. Poor Detroit. Man, I haven't been able to talk about a Pistons win forever, and that's because it's now 21 losses in a row. This is tied a franchise record, and it's also the 5th longest losing streak in NBA history. This is not history you want to be a part of. They dropped 3 games this past week to the Magic, Pacers, and Sixers. I mean, a lot of teams would probably lose against them. They only looked really good in the Pacers game. The other ones, they were down and out the whole time. Cade Cunningham has been the only real consistent part of this team. But getting Bojan Bogdanovic back is huge. He's an NBA scorer, legit scorer, and he should help this team at least get some wins. Sorry, I need a little sip there. Man, it has to be demoralizing to win this many games in a row. They need some kind of confidence boost. Like Monty Williams, I don't know what Coach Monty's doing here. He's got to get his lineup figured out. And maybe I'm not the only one saying this. Maybe I am, but maybe it's time to take Killian Hayes out of the starting lineup and let's go with Jaden Ivey. You got enough boost off the bench. Let's put Ivey in that starting lineup. But that's just me. I'm not a coach, I guess. But I should be. Maybe. One division left in the East, the Southeast. The leaders of this division still the Orlando Magic, tied for the 3rd best record in the Eastern Conference. They had only 2 games this past week, won them both, disposing a troublesome Pistons squad before beating the Cavs. Bancaro and Franz Wagner continue to lead this team, but the depth behind them has flourished. I praise the improvements of Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs this season, and I'll continue to do so. The elevations of their game is the real difference in this team's moving up the standings, I think. But I guess it's also a big part of it is the fact they're the third best defensive team points per game. So the Magic are here to stay. When you're going to play that defense that well, you're going to be in all the games, right? Sticking in Florida, we go to Miami. The Heat went 2-1 this week, dropping a home game to the Cavs before winning a home and home with the Hornets. They've still been without Bam Adebayo over this time, but Orlando Robinson has filled in pretty good. It's tough to replace a guy like Bam, but he's doing what he can, and it's what the Heat does. The Heat culture, right? Each night, someone different can lead the team in scoring. The top 2 leading scorers this season are Hero and Bam, and they're out. So Jimmy, he might be the guy one night, and then like the past 2 nights, Duncan Robinson could be leading in points. It's just next man up mentality. Next team up in the division, the Atlanta Hawks, they went 0-3 this past week, losing to the Sixers, Nuggets, and Raptors. They can score with anybody, but the problem continues to be on the defensive side. 28th in the league in defensive point per game. Trae Young continues to do his thing leading the way, and they have 7 guys averaging double figures, but until they tighten things up defensively, it's going to be hard to win in this league. Oh my, excuse me. Going to Charlotte, the Hornets went 1-2 this week. They'd win a tight one at Toronto before losing that home and home I alluded to the Miami Heat. They're still dealing with life without LaMelo Ball as he's out with that ankle injury. But Terry Rozier, he's been a rock since coming back, and you knew Bridges would be that second contributor, but big shout outs to 2 players at different points in their career. Gordon Hayward has been playing really well lately. He's turning it back the clock a bit. And number 2 overall pick, Brandon Miller, he's been stepping up as well with Ball's absence. So, this team, they're showing what they can do without Ball. And maybe when Ball comes back, they'll be that much better, because he's a big deal to this team. At least with him out, it's giving other guys chances to show. And at least Brandon Miller's taking advantage of it. But wrapping up the Eastern Conference win with the Wizards, losers of 6 in a row. They dropped all 3 of their games this past week by a minimum of 20 points per game, losing the Nats, Sixers, and Pelicans. Top 10 scoring offense that's dead last in defensive points per game. This team just straight up doesn't defend. Kyle Kuzma's been the only consistent part. The Jordan Poole experiment has not looked that great. And they have some tough games coming up this week, so this losing streak could be extending. And then to make matters worse for Washington fans, owner Ted Leonsis owns the Capitals of the NHL as well, has proposed a move to move the team to Virginia by 2028. He's even had discussions with the governor of Virginia about the move, and the Wizards have been garbage the last few years, and these fans have continued to show up, so this is a nice middle finger to them. I don't know, would they be the Virginia Wizards? They can't be the Capitals for the hockey team, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll figure something out with DC and keep the team there. I don't know. But like the gold rush the years past, we'll head west. Starting in the Northwest, number 1 team in the Western Conference, Minnesota Timberwolves. Wolves went 1-1 this past week, beating the Grizzlies before losing to the Pelicans. Anthony Edwards returned from injury to that Grizzlies game, but he'd only last 4 minutes and have to leave with that same nagging hip injury, which also kept him out of the loss to the Pelicans. But this team loses a lot when they don't have Edwards in there. They have the second best defensive point per game in the league. And like I said earlier, when you play defense that well, you're in every game. Can't praise Chris Finch enough for the job he's done, but it'll be very key to see what's up with Anthony Edwards in this next bit here. Next up in the Northwest, OKC Thunder. They went 2-0 this past week, winning a thrilling OT game against the Warriors before beating the Jazz. SGA, he's looking like an MVP. Jalen Williams from Santa Clara has emerged as a legit number 2 scorer. Chet Holmgren, man, he does it on both ends of the floor. He'll block your shit, dunk on you, chat that shit. He's looking like the rookie of the year right now. I hate to say it, but he impacts it in so many ways. He's not afraid of the big moment. He's got that trophy right now, but it's still time for Wemby to get it. We'll see. But the Thunder have 6 guys averaging double figures, 5th best scoring offense in the NBA, and they're the 2nd youngest team in the NBA who's looking to do damage in the postseason now. So, yeah, we'll go from there to the Mile High City, defending champion Nuggets. They went 2-1 this past week, dropping 1 to Houston before winning their next 2 on the road. 1 in Atlanta, 1 in Chicago. That Chicago one was interesting. Like, after only 16 minutes, Nikola Jokic was ejected from the game. He thought he was fouled. He let the ref know. I guess he dropped a motherfucker at him, and after the play ended, the ref said, "Nope, you're gone." Like straight up, threw him out. I didn't expect that. I guess motherfucker is a trigger word, and he'll always get you out. But I didn't think a toss, maybe just a talking to. I don't know, but didn't seem warranted to me. And I guess Chicago is one of the largest Serbian populations in the United States, so they booed the refs. They booed everybody. They wanted to see Jokic, but yeah, the Nuggets would win without him. Second time this season, Jokic has been tossed early in a game, but yeah, they're still trying to figure out getting Jamal Murray back in and working him in since his time off. But this team's still the real deal. They can still repeat as champions. Jokic putting up insane numbers. He's still in the MVP talk. From Denver to Utah, the Jazz went 1-2 this past week, losing to the Clippers and then losing to the Clippers and the Thunder, and they'd follow that up with a big win over the Knicks. Big difference in that Knicks game was the return of Lauri Markkanen. The Big Finn scored 23 and 6 boards in 25 minutes. Colin Sexton was a beast, going for 26 points, 7 dimes, and 4 boards. The team's still missing Clarkson, but that return of Markkanen's huge. The positive about the injuries they've been dealing with is some younger guys have been getting minutes, and Simone Fontecchio loving the time he's getting in the starting lineup, and it's helping the Italian go forward for sure. Wrapping up the Northwest, we go to Portland. Blazers went 0-2 this past week, losing to the Mavericks and Clippers. They were in both games, but the veteran teams ended up pulling away late in those. Anthony Simons and Shaden Sharp looking like one hell of a dynamic duo. Probably one of the most athletic dynamic duos in the league. Simons put up 30 and 38 in those games this week. London, Ontario native Sharp has showed improvements to all parts of his game. And the sky's the limit for him. He could probably jump up and hit this guy too. Mad hops. Number 3 overall pick, Scoot Henderson, has been a little more consistent of late. Chauncey Billups has these guys playing the right way. Even with injuries, the vets, Jeremy Grant and Malcolm Brogdon, they're doing what they need to do right now. From the Northwest to the Pacific into our inaugural in-season tournament champions, the Los Angeles Lakers. They went 3-1 this past week, smashing the Pelicans on the way to the finals where they humbled the up-and-coming Pacers. They follow that up by losing a tough one in Dallas, and then they barely escaped winning in San Antonio. LeBron didn't play against the Spurs in that one, but this Lakers team's looking good right now. I mentioned that tough Dallas loss, but then there, LeBron put up 33 points, 8 boards, 9 dimes. But lately, it's been all about AD. Since going Shaq-like in that tournament final, he's been balling out, going for 37 and 11 against the Mavs, before going for 37 and 10 against Wembanyama and the Spurs. So they're really picking up. There were some questions about this team early on, but they've silenced them. And Jared Vanderbilt's back in the lineup, and look out for him. These defensive numbers for the Lakers are going to get even a little better here. Watch out. He's one of the best defenders in the league. Next up in that division, the Sacramento Kings. They went 2-1 this week. Win a tough one in Phoenix before going home and smashing the Nets. Then they go to LA and lose to the Clippers. But they've been playing some pretty good ball this lately. The loss to the Clippers came on the second of a back-to-back where the Kings have struggled this year. But everyone's saying that the Kings trade the right guard. Like everyone's loving Halliburton, deservedly so. He's the real deal. But let's pump the brakes. I love Halliburton, but man, I love watching De'Aaron Fox. He's one of my favorite players in the league. He's the real deal every night. He could drop 30 on you. Sabonis, he's been consistent inside. Malik Monk still in the running for 6th man of the year. Such a deep and talented team, like 6 guys averaging double figures. I'd like to see more EuroLeague MVP Sasha Vezenkov, but it's hard to find minutes on this team. Clippers went 3-0 this past week, and they have 5 in a row won. They beat the Jazz, Blazers, and Kings. I think Ty Lue has finally figured this rotation out. Took some time, but these guys are getting it right now. And it helps when Kawhi Leonard play like he has the last bit. 41, 34, and 31 the last 3 games. The Claw's been feeling it. Will methodically break you down before scoring in so many ways. I initially had doubts about the Harden transaction, but I have to admit, this team's showing what they're capable of right now. You do not want to play them in a 7-game series. Right now, their only concern is, can they keep it up without getting hurt? These guys have dealt with a lot of injuries this year, or in the past. Hope they can stay healthy. And if they do, maybe a different LA team will be thinking about a title this year. But from LA to Phoenix, the Suns went 1-2 this week. All 3 games at home, too. They lose to Sacramento before beating the Warriors and then dropping one of the Nets. Exciting times for the Suns, though. Bradley Beal has finally returned to the lineup. He scored 16 in his return against the Warriors. Then in the game against the Nets, all 3 of them played. We had KD, Booker, and Beal. Granted, the Nets spoiled the party by winning, but It was their first game. They'll have a lot of time to develop chemistry here. To the basement of the Pacific, the Golden State Warriors 0-2 this past week, losing in OT to the Thunder before losing to the Suns in a close one. And that wasn't the only thing the Warriors lost. Draymond Green was ejected for doing a turning swing and connecting with Yusuf Nurkic's face. Green said he was just trying to get a foul and swung around, but it looked like there was some intent there. It was originally called a flagrant one. It was upgraded to a flagrant two, and he was ejected. And yeah, he apologized after the game to Nurkic. Nurkic is like, that guy needs help. I'm just lucky he didn't choke me. In the league, they came down hard on Draymond, suspending him indefinitely and saying he'll be required to meet certain league and team conditions before he can return. So yeah, a big loss to a team that's been taking a lot of losses. Steph Curry's been having another MVP-like season, but he's getting no help. Klay Thompson's averaging a 15 a game, but shooting under 40 from the field. Wiggins isn't looking like the Wiggins that we've seen in the past with the Warriors. And yeah, when the Warriors down 3 to the Suns in that game, Clay and Wiggins were both parked on the bench. So I don't know. The struggle between playing the vets and running with the young guys you may not fully trust is real for Steve Kerr right now. He's got some tough decisions on his plate over the next few weeks. Going to the last division covered in this recap, the Southwest, start with the Mavericks. Mavericks went 3-0 this past week, and they won 4 in a row in total. They beat the Blazers, Grizzlies, and then that amazing game against the Lakers. Luka's looked amazing, especially since becoming a dad. He's dropped 32, 35, and 33 the last 3 games. And oh yeah, that one last one there, 17 assists as well. So yeah, his name's up there with MVP talks. The only bummer is Kyrie Irving picked up a heel contusion against the Blazers, and he's missed the last 2 games after. Said he's dodged a bullet on a serious injury, but this still could keep him out a bit. But with Kyrie out, Dante Exum has stepped up. So it's good to see him back in the league after balling it out in Europe. And look out for Tim Hardaway. Still potential 6th man of the year running up against Malik Monk there. I had to even throw on a Mavs jersey here. Hey, Steve Nash in the house. But next team, this team's surprising people. Still, the Houston Rockets 3-0 this past week, 4 in a row in total. They beat the defending champion Nuggets before beating my Spurs with a scoreline that was out of the 90s, and then they beat the Grizzlies. Ime Udoka has his Rockets playing amazing defense, the number 1 team against point per game in the league. Like, I mean, the additions of Van Vliet and Brooks was going to help the defense, but this is insane. Number 1 against points, number 1 in points per game for opposition. It's crazy to me. Sengun continues to grow into a star player. Jalen Green's developing as well. This is a developing team that is winning on the fly. Talk about win-win situation. Next up, the Pelicans. They went 2-1 this past week. They were humbled by the Lakers in that semifinals in the in-season tournament. Everybody was saying, hey, where was Zion? Why didn't he show up against LeBron? You know, the old man made him look fat and out of shape. But how would Williamson answer? He'd go up against that tough Timberwolves team and draw up a season-high 36. CJ and Ingram both went over for 20 in that one. Zion would miss the next game. But you know what? Don't worry. Ingram will drop 40. So when I saw that bracket, I thought Pelicans would win that in-season tournament, but I didn't expect that out of Zion against the Lakers. I expected what he did against the Wolves. But this team's getting healthy, and they're getting dangerous. Trey Murphy's been a stud since coming back. The hardest thing for Coach Willie Green is just getting enough playing time for all these guys. Going to Memphis, the Grizzlies went 0-3 this past week, losing to the Timberwolves, Mavericks, and Rockets. I mean, a lot of teams would go 0-3 through that gauntlet, but you can't put any of those losses on Jaren Jackson Jr. He had a good game against the Wolves in that tough front line, but he dropped 41 and 44 the next 2 games. He's really stepping it up. Desmond Bane, he's been the other shining star in this season of struggles, but the Grizzlies are 6-17, which means they played 23 games. Quick maths. But that means they play 2 more games, and Ja Morant can finally return to the lineup. He's been serving that 25-game suspension for flashing guns, and for the second time around. And Marcus Smart should be returning from injury soon, so the Grizz can maybe make something out of this season. Ending the wrap up, we go to my Spurs. They went 0-3 this past week. The losing streak is now up to 18. It'd probably be talked about more if the Pistons weren't on their outrageous one. This is a franchise record, though, for the Spurs and continuing to grow. Lost to the Bulls, Rockets, and then a tight one to the Lakers, where they almost came back and had an improbable comeback win. Keywords almost, though. Lots of almosts in this losing streak. Wembanyama did ball out against Davis, though, in the Lakers. He'd go for 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 blocks. Like, that's the kind of plays that's going to help him get back in that Rookie of the Year race with Holmgren. His team continues the fight, and it's been reported that Pop is going to pull Jeremy Sohan from point guard duties, which I think is good. Like, the experiment's good for helping Sohan develop his playmaking, but we need a natural point guard to be setting Wemby up in the right spots at the right time. But yeah, that's the wrap ups for week 7. How does your team look at this point? My Spurs, some tough games this upcoming week, so that losing streak may continue. Pistons and their 21 game losing streak is ugh. Clippers, hottest team in the league right now with 5 straight wins. Stats, I'm a stats man. Joel Embiid, he leads the league in scoring 33.8 points per game. Luka, Giannis, Kevin Durant, and SGA are the only others averaging over 30. Jokic continues to lead the league in rebounds at 12.6 per game. Tight behind him, though, Anthony Davis, Sabonis, and Rudy Gobert all there as well. Tyrese Halliburton leads the league in assists at 12 per game. Trae Young is the only other player averaging double figures in assists. Nikola Jokic is just under 10 at 9.4, so he's really close to averaging a triple-double. SGA continues to lead the league in steals at 2.8. Brooke Lopez shares the blocks per game lead with your boy Victor Wembanyama. They're both averaging 3 per game. Which takes you to the Rencity top 5. A little bit of change with this one. I got the Celtics at the top, Timberwolves at 2, Thunder at 3, Mavericks at 4, Bucks at 5, with Porzingis returning to the lineup. Combined with the disappointing loss in the in-season tournament, this Celtics team is looking like the best in the league instead of top my rankings. I have Minnesota just behind them. They took a beating against an angry Pelicans team, but this team plays so well defensively, they should bounce back. As I mentioned earlier, the big thing is Anthony Edwards. How long will this injury hamper him? The Thunder, one of my favorite teams to watch, have them at number 3. Despite being the second youngest team, they will take you out. Daddy Luka Doncic and the Mavericks move back into the top 5 with their 4-game winning streak. Luka's been even more lights out since becoming a dad, like I said. And Dante Exum continue to play the way he has while Kyrie Irving deals with this injury. And the Bucks stay in the top 5 with that Antetokounmpo performance against Indiana, where he dropped, like I said, a career-high 64. Must have been weird for Dame to watch someone else on his team go for 60, but that team has it all, and they're still figuring out. So that's the Rencity top 5 for this week. Let me know what you think, if anything needs to be changed there. Little MVP talk. I mentioned Jokic's outrageous numbers, almost averaging a triple-double. Jason Tatum's up for the award. Giannis and Embiid are certainly in there. But let's not rule out Shai Gilgeous-Alexander either. What he's doing with that Thunder team is unreal. So right now, I have him in that front spot. But like I said, those other guys could be in it too. It could change. But let's have SGA in that leading spot right now. And then I think his play on the winning team has Chet Holmgren's case a little better than Wembanyama's for Rookie of the Year. It's hard to give an award to anyone on an 18-game losing streak. But, you know, Wembanyama's averages are higher, but Holmgren's percentages are higher. Holmgren's a third or sometimes second option on a playoff team, while Wembanyama's carrying a struggling developing team. So there's a little bit of differences there. And the wild thing is the Thunder are just slightly a little older than the Spurs. It's ridiculous. So right now I think it's Chet's, but like the MVP race, it can change week to week. And keep your eye on Brandon Miller. I mentioned him earlier. He's been balling as of late and moving up in the rookie race, I guess. But yeah, that's week 7, guys. It's recapped up. So lots of good hoops going on. If you didn't like the in-season tournament, well, don't need to worry about it anymore. It's done. So just concentrate on the rest of the year. Hopefully we can see these dreadful losing streaks end and continue to see some injury-free hoops. And yeah, we'll see what happens with Draymond. You don't want to meet him in a back alley. But anyway, thanks for coming out. Rencity out.